I noticed my wife spending more and more time at our cabin, so I installed a hidden camera to find out what was really going on. But when I finally saw who was there with her, I was completely stunned. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. That line sounds dramatic, right? Like something you'd scroll past on your phone at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. Except this isn't clickbait. This is my life, and it rotted from the inside while I was busy being a decent husband. My name is Edwin Wolf. I'm 40 years old, and I own a small auto repair shop called Wolf Garage. Nothing fancy. Just me, 2 mechanics, and enough work to keep the lights on and the bills paid. I'm good at what I do. I understand engines, transmissions, the small betrayals that happen under a hood when a gasket fails or a timing belt snaps. Turns out I'm not so good at understanding the betrayals that happen under my own roof. Victoria, my wife, started acting different about 4 months ago. Little things at first. New perfume, the kind that costs more than I'd spend on a carburetor. She'd giggle during phone calls and then go quiet when I walked into the room. She started talking about needing creative space, time to think, room to breathe. I just need the cabin for a few weekends, she said one Thursday night, fork halfway to her mouth. The magazine work is piling up, and I can't concentrate here. Victoria manages content for a regional lifestyle and travel magazine. She curates articles about boutique hotels and hiking trails and where to get the best lobster roll within 50 miles of the coast. It's the kind of job that makes people think she's more important than she actually is. She likes that. Sure, I said. Take all the time you need. I meant it. I'm not a jealous man. Never have been. I figured she was stressed. Maybe going through something. Women do that, right? They need space sometimes. I gave it to her, but then the cabin trips got longer and more frequent. She'd leave Friday afternoon and come back late Sunday with flushed cheeks and a lightness in her step that I hadn't seen in years. She started dressing better for those trips. Lacy things under her jeans, hair done up even though she was supposedly going to sit alone in the woods and write. One Saturday, I drove past the cabin on my way back from picking up parts in the next county. Her car was there. So was another car, a black Audi sedan. I knew that car. I didn't stop. I kept driving. But my hands were shaking on the wheel. That night, I called Mary Ann Collins. She's a former attorney who lives about 2 miles from our cabin. Sharp woman. Mid-40s, drinks bourbon like water, and has no patience for stupidity. We'd met at a town meeting once, and she'd helped me sort out a contract dispute with a parts supplier. Mary Ann, I said when she picked up. Hypothetically, if a man suspected his wife was doing something she shouldn't be doing at their cabin, what would you tell him? There was a pause, then a dry laugh. I'd tell him that when women suddenly crave solitude, there's usually a man waiting at the bottom of that silence. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I ordered a wireless camera online. Small, motion-activated, the kind you'd use for home security. It arrived in 3 days. I installed it myself on a Tuesday afternoon when Victoria was at work. Tucked it behind a bookshelf in the living room, angled toward the couch and kitchen. Perfect view. I tested it. The feed came through clean on my phone. Then I waited. Victoria left for the cabin that Friday. I watched the camera feed from my phone in the back office of the garage. For the first hour, nothing. Just an empty room with afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, dust particles floating lazily in the beams of light. Then she appeared. Walked in carrying a bag of groceries from that organic market she likes on the east side of town, the one where everything costs 3 times what it should. She set the bag on the counter, unpacked a few things, cheese, crackers, grapes, the kind of spread you make when you're trying to impress someone. Then she opened a bottle of wine. A nice one, judging by the label, one of those bottles with the fancy French name that I could never pronounce. She poured 2 glasses with careful precision. 2. My chest tightened. I kept watching, unable to look away even though part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. 20 minutes later, the front door opened again, and Ben Carrington walked in like he owned the place. Ben. My best friend since high school. The guy who was best man at my wedding. The guy who stood next to me when I said my vows and clapped me on the back and told me I was lucky to have found Victoria. The guy who'd convinced me 6 months ago to invest in a joint business venture, a new auto repair shop near the coast where the highway traffic was heavy and the port brought in steady commercial work. I'd given him $35,000. Half of my life savings. Money I'd spent years accumulating, one oil change and brake job at a time. We were supposed to be partners. Equal partners building something together. He walked over to Victoria without hesitation. No awkward greeting, no surprised hello. Just walked right up to her like it was the most natural thing in the world. And kissed her. Not a friendly peck on the cheek, not a casual hello between friends. A deep, slow, hungry kiss. The kind of kiss that speaks of familiarity and repetition. The kind of kiss that tells you this isn't the first time, not even close. She laughed when they broke apart. That laugh I used to love, the one that sounded like wind chimes on a summer evening. Now it sounded like nails on a chalkboard. He pulled her close, whispered something in her ear. She laughed again. They moved to the couch, wine glasses in hand, settling into the cushions like they'd done this 100 times before. I watched for 10 minutes, then 20. They talked, laughed, touched. Everything about their body language screamed intimacy and comfort. This wasn't new. This wasn't an accident. This was routine. Finally, I turned off the feed and sat in the dark office, the only light coming from the fluorescent bulbs in the shop bay beyond the door. I could hear Tommy and Ray working on a Chevy Silverado, the sound of air tools and classic rock radio filling the space. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream or punch the wall or let the rage consume me. Instead, I smiled. It was a new kind of smile. Cold, thin, sharp at the edges. The kind of smile you'd see on a man who just realized he'd been playing checkers while everyone else was playing chess. But now I knew the board. Now I understood the rules. Now I could see every piece in play, and I was about to flip the whole damn table. The footage kept recording over the next 2 weeks. Every time Victoria went to the cabin, Ben showed up within an hour. Like clockwork. I watched every second, every frame, every moment. Victoria and Ben at the cabin, drinking wine, laughing, cooking dinner together like a real couple, tangled together on the couch, and later disappearing into the bedroom. I made myself watch. Not out of self-punishment, not because I took any satisfaction in it, but because I needed to understand precisely what I was facing. I needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal. I needed evidence, documentation, proof that couldn't be explained away or rationalized or dismissed as a misunderstanding. But more than that, they talked. A lot. And that was almost worse than the physical stuff, worse than watching them touch each other and kiss and disappear into the bedroom. Because when people talk freely, when they think no one's listening, when they believe they're safe and anonymous, they reveal who they really are. They drop the masks. They say what they truly think. They expose the ugliness underneath. "Edwin's too safe," Victoria said one night, lying on her back on my couch, staring at the ceiling with that contemplative expression she gets when she's had too much wine. Ben was beside her, hand resting comfortably on her stomach, looking relaxed and satisfied. He's predictable. You always know exactly what he's going to do, exactly what he's going to say. He'll never take a risk, never do anything bigger than that little garage. He's content with small, I'm not. Those words hit harder than any punch could have. Content with small. Like everything I'd built meant nothing. Like 20 years of honest work was something to be ashamed of. "You deserve better," Ben said, and I could hear the smugness in his voice even through the phone speaker, that self-satisfied tone of a man who thinks he's won something. "You deserve someone who sees the bigger picture, someone who wants more than just getting by, someone who understands ambition." She turned to him, smiled that smile I'd seen 1,000 times, the one I used to think was reserved for me. "You see it, don't you? The bigger picture." "Always have." He kissed her forehead like it was the most natural thing in the world, like he had every right to touch my wife that way. "Edwin's a good guy. I'm not saying he's not. But he's small town. He's comfortable. He'll spend the rest of his life changing oil and replacing brake pads and going home to the same house and eating the same meals and never wanting anything different. That investment he gave me, I'm going to turn it into something real, something substantial, something he could never build on his own because he doesn't have the vision or the guts." Victoria laughed. Actually laughed. Like it was funny. Like my trust and my money and my friendship were all just jokes. "So you're using his money to build a better life for us?" "Something like that. He won't know what hit him. By the time he figures it out, it'll be too late. The shop will be operating, the contracts will be signed, and he'll just be another mechanic who couldn't see past his own wrench. And honestly, he deserves it for being so blind." I replayed that part 3 times, not because I didn't believe it the first time, but because I wanted to burn it into my memory. Every word, every inflection, every casual dismissal of the 20 years I'd spent building a life with Victoria, every insult to the work I did with my hands, every betrayal disguised as friendly advice. I made notes in a small notebook I kept locked in my desk drawer. Dates, times, specific conversations, direct quotes when I could remember them clearly. I clipped the video files and backed them up in 3 separate places: an external hard drive, a cloud storage account under a fake name, and a USB drive I kept in my truck. Then I started digging into the business arrangement. I pulled up the partnership agreement Ben and I had signed 6 months ago. 23 pages of legal language that basically said we were equal partners in all aspects of the new venture. 50-50 split on investment, profits, decision-making, everything. I reviewed the transfer documents showing my $35,000 contribution, checked the property rental contract for the new shop location about 90 miles north, right off Highway 101 where the commercial traffic was steady and reliable. Everything was in both our names, which should have made me feel secure. But Ben had been handling all the day-to-day setup while I kept the current shop running. He was supposed to be lining up suppliers, negotiating with equipment vendors, securing the necessary permits and licenses, setting up utility accounts, doing all the groundwork so we could open smoothly. I'd trusted him completely, never questioned a single decision, never asked to see receipts or invoices or proof of progress. That was my second mistake. I started making calls on Monday morning. Quiet calls from my office with the door closed while Tommy and Ray handled the shop floor. The first call went to Tommy Riggs, a guy who runs a wholesale auto parts distributor out of Portland. We'd used his company for years. Good prices, reliable delivery, quality parts. He was one of the suppliers Ben said he'd lined up for the new shop. "Hey Tommy, Edwin Wolf, just checking in on that order Ben Carrington placed for the new shop?" "Yeah, man, got it all lined up. Should be ready to ship once you guys give us the green light. He said you were opening next month, right? Late December?" "That's the plan. Hey, quick question. He mentioned he was using the franchise name for the bulk discount." There was a pause on the other end, long enough to make my stomach clench. Yeah. He said you guys were partnering with Precision Tech Auto. That's why I gave him the franchise rate. 20% off standard pricing plus extended payment terms. I wouldn't have done that for an independent shop, you understand. But Precision Tech's got solid credit and a good reputation, so I was happy to extend the courtesy. Precision Tech Auto is a regional franchise chain with about 40 locations across 3 states. Reputable, well-known, professionally managed. The kind of operation that gets bulk discounts and favorable terms because suppliers know they'll get paid and they'll get repeat business. Ben had dropped their name to get better deals, but we had no partnership with them. No agreement, no permission, no franchise license, no nothing. He'd straight up lied to the suppliers, used their brand name without authorization to leverage my money into better terms. Right, I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. Just wanted to confirm the details. Thanks, Tommy. No problem. Hey, congratulations on the expansion. It's good to see local guys growing. Let me know if you need anything else. I hung up and stared at the phone for a long moment. Then I made another call. And another. 3 more suppliers over the course of the morning. An equipment vendor who specialized in hydraulic lifts. A tire distributor. A diagnostic equipment company. Same story every time. Ben had been dropping Precision Tech's name everywhere, implying we had an official franchise agreement that didn't exist. Using their reputation to negotiate better prices, extended credit, favorable terms. Building his new venture on a foundation of lies and unauthorized brand use. That was fraud. Not the kind that gets you arrested necessarily, but the kind that gets you blacklisted. The kind that makes sure no one in the industry will work with you again once the truth comes out. The kind that destroys reputations and careers. I could use that, but I needed to be smart about it. Needed to understand all the pieces before I started knocking them down. I pulled up the rental agreement for the property next. Read through it carefully this time, looking for details I'd glossed over when Ben first presented it to me. The lease was month to month for the first 6 months, then transitioned to a year-long contract with options to renew. We were still in the month-to-month phase. Rent was $2,800 a month, split between us, utilities separate, property insurance required, and there, in Section 7, Paragraph 3. Either partner could terminate the agreement with 30 days written notice during the month-to-month period. After that, both partners had to agree to termination or the lease converted automatically. I drafted a termination letter that night at home, sitting at the kitchen table with Victoria asleep upstairs. Professional, clean, no emotion, just a simple statement that I was exercising my right to terminate the partnership lease effective 30 days from receipt of notice. I didn't send it yet. Wasn't ready to show my hand. Just wanted it ready when the time came. The next morning, I called Marianne Collins. "I need advice," I said when she answered. "Legal or personal?" "Both." She sighed, but I could hear the interest in her voice. Marianne loves a good problem to solve. "Come by tonight. Bring bourbon. The good stuff, not that cheap garbage you drink at home." I stopped at the liquor store on the way and picked up a bottle of Maker's Mark. Expensive by my standards, but this conversation was worth the investment. I showed up at her place just after 7. Small craftsman-style house with a wraparound porch and a wood-burning fireplace that was already crackling when I walked in. She poured 2 generous glasses, and we sat in her living room, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. "Show me," she said without preamble. I pulled out my phone, played 30 seconds of the cabin footage, just enough to make the situation crystal clear without being gratuitous. She watched without expression, taking small sips of bourbon. When the clip ended, she set her glass down with a soft clink. "Your best friend and your wife. Classic story." She leaned back in her chair. "How long?" "At least a few months, based on how comfortable they are together. Maybe longer." "And you want to what? Divorce her? Sue him? Both?" "I want to ruin them," I said, and hearing the words out loud felt both terrifying and liberating. "Completely. I want them to understand what they took from me. I want consequences." "Legally?" "Preferably. I'm not interested in doing anything that lands me in trouble, but I want them destroyed." She smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a woman who'd spent 20 years in courtrooms watching bad people face justice. "Tell me everything you've got." I walked her through it all methodically. The investment, the unauthorized use of Precision Tech's name, the suppliers he'd lied to, the property lease and the termination clause, the cabin footage and the hours of recorded conversations, Victoria's affair, Ben's plans to cut me out once the shop was operational. She listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she took a long drink and stared into the fire for a moment. "You've got enough to bury him professionally," she finally said. "The suppliers will drop him the second they know he lied about the franchise deal. Precision Tech will probably threaten legal action for unauthorized brand use. And if you terminate the lease, he loses the location. Without the location and without supplier relationships, the whole project collapses. He'll be left with nothing and a destroyed reputation." "What about Victoria?" "Divorce is always messy, but you've got clear proof of adultery, which matters in some states more than others. Even if it doesn't affect asset division much in your state, it'll matter in terms of reputation and social standing. If she works in media and lifestyle publishing, image is everything. Nobody wants to work with someone known for cheating on their spouse, especially in that industry. It suggests poor judgment and questionable character. She manages content for Coastal Living Today, regional magazine, small staff but decent circulation. Then you've got leverage." She finished her drink and poured another for both of us. "But Edwin, let me be absolutely clear about something. Revenge is a narrow path with no guardrails. Once you start down it, you have to commit fully. No halfway measures, no backing out when it gets uncomfortable, no regrets when you see them hurting. Can you do that?" I thought about Victoria's laugh on the video. Ben's smug voice talking about how I'd never see it coming. The casual way they'd discussed using my money and my trust to build their future together. "I'm committed," I said. She studied me for a long moment, looking for cracks or doubt. Then she nodded slowly. "Good. Then let's make it hurt." We spent the next 2 hours planning. Mary Ann had a legal mind that was absolutely ruthless when properly motivated. She helped me understand exactly what evidence I needed, what documentation would be most damaging, what timing would be most effective. We mapped out a strategy that was methodical and devastating. "The key," she said as I was leaving close to midnight, "is to let them think they're safe right up until the moment you strike. Don't tip your hand, don't confront, don't give them any warning that you know. Let them get comfortable, let them get sloppy, and then hit them all at once from multiple directions so they can't mount an effective defense." I drove home feeling more focused than I had in weeks. I had a plan now, a real plan. Not just anger and hurt, but a systematic approach to making sure they paid for what they'd done. Over the next week, I prepared meticulously. I didn't confront Victoria about anything, didn't change my behavior or give any indication that I knew. I played the role of the oblivious husband perfectly, kissed her goodbye in the mornings, asked about her day over dinner, smiled and nodded when she said she needed another weekend at the cabin to finish a big project for the magazine. "Sure," I said, helping her pack her overnight bag on Friday afternoon. "Take all the time you need. I know how important this work is to you." "Thanks for understanding," she said, and she actually seemed relieved, like she'd been worried I might object. "I should be back Sunday evening, Monday morning at the latest." "No rush. I'll be fine here." She left at 3 in the afternoon with groceries, wine, and an overnight bag. I waited an hour, checked the cabin cameras, saw her settling in, then headed north. I took a cheap room at the Pine Ridge Inn near the property where the new shop was supposed to open. I wasn't there for comfort, only for the next move. The building sat off Highway 101, A solid location with space for multiple service bays. Ben had chosen well. His black Audi was parked out front when I arrived just after 9. The lot was empty and quiet, one street lamp casting long shadows. I sat for a moment, feeling not anger, but cold focus. Weeks of preparation had brought me here. I approached Ben's car. He loved that Audi, his symbol of success. I examined it, then made sure it wouldn't be drivable anytime soon. Nothing dangerous, nothing that would endanger anyone's life, just enough to cost him, to stop the momentum he'd stolen. Before closing the hood, I left a message etched where he'd eventually see it, something he wouldn't be able to ignore. When I was done, I wiped down what I'd touched, walked back to my truck, and looked at the property one last time. It could have been a real partnership, something meaningful. Instead, it had become another lie. I drove back to the motel and slept better than I had in weeks, knowing I'd taken my first step toward justice. The next morning, Sunday, I woke to a text from Ben. It came through at 8:37 in the morning. Someone messed with my car. Brakes feel wrong, off, dangerous. You hear anything about vandalism at the site? Any trouble with locals? I waited 10 minutes before responding. Let him sweat a little. No, that's weird. Want me to take a look when I get back to town? Nah, I'll get it towed to a shop here. Just strange. Didn't see anyone around. Gates were locked. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. Probably just kids. Or a competitor who doesn't want another shop opening in the area. Maybe. Still feels aimed at us, though. Personal. I didn't answer that. Just let the conversation end there. I checked out of the motel and drove home, taking the long way through the mountains. It gave me time to think, time to plan what came next. Because this was just the opening salvo. The car was symbolic, a message, but the real damage was still coming. Over the next few days, I compiled everything I had on Ben into organized folders, both digital and physical. Every invoice, every email, every text message, every document where he'd referenced Precision Tech Auto without authorization, every conversation where he'd promised suppliers and vendors that we had a franchise agreement. I organized it all chronologically, highlighted the important sections, added notes explaining the context and significance of each piece, made it easy to understand even for someone with no background in the auto industry. Then I started sending emails, anonymous ones. I'd set up a burner email account through a service that didn't require phone verification, routed everything through a VPN that masked my location, used a public Wi-Fi connection at a coffee shop 2 towns over. Nothing fancy or sophisticated, just careful, just smart. The first email went to Precision Tech Auto's regional director, a woman named Patricia Chen, according to their website. Subject line, an unauthorized use of brand name. I kept the message brief and professional. No accusations, no emotional language, just facts presented clearly. Dear Ms. Chen, I'm writing to inform you that an individual named Ben Carrington has been using the Precision Tech Auto brand name without authorization to negotiate supplier contracts and equipment deals. He has explicitly told multiple vendors that he is operating under a Precision Tech franchise agreement, which has allowed him to secure substantial discounts and favorable payment terms. I have attached documentation showing several instances of this unauthorized brand use. I thought you should be aware of this situation, as it may expose Precision Tech to liability issues and could damage your brand reputation if the fraud is discovered by the vendors involved. I attached screenshots of 3 invoices and 2 email chains where Ben had explicitly referenced Precision Tech. Clear, undeniable, damning. I sent it Monday morning at 6:15, before the sun was fully up. The second round of emails went to the suppliers themselves. Tommy Riggs at the parts distributor, the equipment vendor, the tire company, the diagnostic equipment supplier. Same approach, same tone, professional courtesy from one business to another. Dear Tommy, I wanted to bring to your attention a potential fraud situation that may affect your business. Ben Carrington has been claiming to operate under a Precision Tech Auto franchise agreement in order to secure franchise-level pricing and terms. This franchise agreement does not exist. Ben Carrington is not affiliated with Precision Tech Auto in any official capacity. I've attached documentation that demonstrates this pattern of misrepresentation. I thought you should be aware before extending any additional credit or services. I sent similar emails to all the suppliers Ben had contacted, didn't sign any of them, didn't leave any trail that led back to me, just provided information and let them draw their own conclusions. Then I waited. The beauty of this approach was that I didn't need to do anything else. The system would take care of itself. Precision Tech would protect their brand. The suppliers would protect their money. Ben would be caught in the middle with no way to explain himself. No way to make it right. Within 48 hours, the calls started. I knew because I was monitoring Ben's social media accounts from a fake profile I'd created, watching for any signs of distress or panic. It started Tuesday afternoon, a post about unexpected business complications, dealing with some supplier issues, nothing we can't handle. Stay tuned. Then Wednesday morning. Some people will do anything to sabotage competition. Real professionals rise above it. By Wednesday evening, the tone had shifted. When you build something real, people try to tear it down. It's the price of success. But I could read between the lines, could see the desperation creeping in, could feel his world starting to crack. Thursday morning, I got a call from Tommy Riggs. Edwin? Hey man, I need to ask you something. This new shop you and Ben are opening, do you actually have a franchise agreement with Precision Tech? No, I said simply. We don't. Why? Because Ben told me you did. Used it to negotiate a 20% discount on all parts. Said it was official. I got an email from someone yesterday questioning it, so I called Precision Tech directly to verify. They've never heard of Ben Carrington, never authorized any franchise agreement. They're actually pretty upset about the unauthorized brand use. I had no idea he was doing that, I said, which was technically true. I hadn't known until I started digging. I trusted him to handle the supplier relationships. Well, he's not handling them anymore. I'm pulling all pending orders until this gets sorted out. And honestly, Edwin, I don't think I can work with him going forward. This kind of thing destroys trust. I've been in this business 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it. I understand completely, I said. Do what you need to do. Over the next 2 days, more suppliers called, pulling out, demanding answers, cutting ties with Ben as fast as they could. His reputation was cracking like early spring ice. On the surface, it looked solid, but underneath everything was coming apart. And I still wasn't finished. That Sunday night, Victoria came home from the cabin looking wrecked. Dark circles under her eyes, hair in a messy ponytail, barely touching her dinner as she checked her phone again and again. Everything okay? I asked, keeping my voice concerned and caring. Fine, she said without looking up from her phone. You seem stressed. Just work stuff, deadlines, the usual. Anything I can help with? No. Then, softer. Sorry. No. I just need to work through some things. I nodded sympathetically. Let me know if you need anything. She didn't respond, just kept staring at her phone. Later that night, around 11, I heard her voice coming from the bedroom, talking on the phone, trying to be quiet but not succeeding. I moved into the hallway outside our bedroom door, staying in the shadows, listening. I don't know what happened, she was saying. Her voice was tight with stress. He's completely freaking out. Says someone's sabotaging him. Says suppliers are backing out, threatening to report him for fraud. He thinks it's a competitor who doesn't want another shop in the area. Pause. Listening to whoever was on the other end. No, Edwin doesn't know anything. He's completely clueless, still going to work every day, coming home, watching TV. If he suspected something, he'd confront me. That's how he is. Direct. He doesn't do subtle. Another pause. Longer this time. Then her voice dropped lower. Colder. More calculating. If this divorce happens, I'm taking him for everything. The house, the shop, all of it. He's not smart enough to fight back. He'll just sign whatever his lawyer tells him to sign and walk away. I've already talked to an attorney. She says I've got a strong case for getting at least half of the business assets, maybe more if I can prove he was emotionally distant or neglectful. I stood in the hallway, listening to my wife calmly plan my financial ruin. I felt nothing, just a cold, precise clarity. She'd made her choice. She could live with the fallout. I returned to the living room, took out my phone, and opened a new burner email. Fresh address, fresh VPN, no trail. Subject, smile, you're on camera. The message was short. I knew about the cabin, about him and Victoria, and I had footage, hours of it. He had 1 week to withdraw from the partnership and return the $35,000 investment, or I'd release everything to his professional network and destroy what was left of his reputation. I attached a 10-second video of them on the cabin couch. Nothing explicit, just undeniable closeness, and a 15-second audio clip. Victoria. Edwin's too predictable. Ben. By the time he figures it out, it'll be too late. The shop will be mine. I sent the email at 1:30 a.m., set the phone down, and slept soundly. The real war was only beginning. Ben called Tuesday morning while I was under a Honda Civic replacing a failed tie rod end, a dangerous break that could have caused a major accident. I ignored the buzzing phone, finished the repair, torqued everything properly, tested the steering, then climbed out and cleaned my hands. 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails. I listened to the first one later during lunch, sitting in my office with a sandwich and a bottle of water. Edwin, we need to talk. Seriously. Someone's trying to mess with me, with us, with the whole partnership. I don't know who it is, but they're spreading lies. Sending emails, making accusations. The suppliers are all backing out. Precision Tech is threatening legal action. Everything's falling apart. Call me back as soon as you get this. His voice was tight, strained, on the edge of panic, fear bleeding through every word. Good. The second voicemail was shorter, more desperate. Edwin, please. I know you're probably working, but this is important. This affects both of us, both our futures. Just call me. Please? I deleted the messages and went back to work, refusing to call him. Let him sweat. Let him feel the walls closing in the way he'd wanted them to close on me. That evening, I made the 90-mile drive north as the sky turned orange and purple. I stopped for gas and coffee, letting the anticipation settle in my bones. Ben's Audi was there again. Lights on inside the future office space, his shadow pacing behind the windows, clearly scrambling for a way out. I parked down the street and watched. 20 minutes later, he came out, jittery and beaten, locking the door with sharp movements before heading for his car. I walked toward him across the gravel. He noticed me about 20 feet away, and in 2 seconds his face went from surprise to confusion to something very close to fear. Edwin, he said, trying to inject casual friendliness into his voice and failing completely. What are you doing here? I didn't know you were coming up. Checking on the investment, I said, keeping my voice neutral and conversational. Wanted to see how the place is coming along, see what my $35,000 is buying. He glanced at his car, then back at me, calculating. It's coming, just some delays, supplier issues like I mentioned, nothing we can't work through. Yeah, I heard about that. I stopped a few feet away from him, close enough to talk normally but far enough to maintain distance. Funny how they all backed out at the same time, all of them, same week, like someone told them something that made them uncomfortable. He stiffened. What are you talking about? Precision Tech, the franchise deal you told everyone we had, the one you used to negotiate better prices and payment terms. Except we don't have a franchise deal, do we, Ben? We never did. You just used their name without permission. His jaw clenched. I could see him trying to figure out how I knew, who told me, whether he could still talk his way out of it. Who told you that? Does it matter? Multiple suppliers confirmed it. Precision Tech confirmed it. It's not exactly a secret anymore. He took a step toward me. Edwin, listen. Let me explain. It's not what you think. I'm sure you can explain, I said calmly. You've always been good at explaining things, good at talking, good at making people believe you, but I'm not interested in explanations anymore. Then what do you want? I want my money back, $35,000, every penny, and I want you out of the partnership, completely, clean break. He laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound that echoed across the empty parking lot. You can't do that. We signed a contract, legal binding partnership agreement. Month-to-month lease, Section 7, Paragraph 3. Either partner can terminate with 30 days written notice. I already sent the letter, certified mail. You should get it tomorrow. His face went pale. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. More serious than I've ever been about anything. He took another step closer, close enough now that I could see the anger starting to override the fear in his eyes, close enough that I tensed slightly, ready for whatever came next. You don't know what you're doing, he said, voice rising. You think you're smart, but you're not. You're just a mechanic. You've always been just a mechanic. Small time, small-minded. That's why Victoria... He stopped himself, realized what he was about to say. Too late. That's why Victoria what? I asked quietly. He didn't answer, just stood there, mouth slightly open, knowing he'd revealed too much. I smiled. That cold, thin smile. Smile, Ben. You're on camera. He froze completely. What? The cabin. Victoria. All of it. Every visit, every conversation, every time you talked about what an idiot I am, every time you laughed about using my money, every time you planned your future together using my resources. I've got footage of all of it. Hours and hours. Crystal clear, undeniable. That's impossible. It's actually very possible. Hidden camera, motion activated, feeds directly to my phone. I've been watching for weeks. His face lost every trace of color, truly went pale, as if all life had suddenly drained from it. That's illegal, he said, voice shaking. You can't record people without their consent. It's against the law. Actually, in this state, I can. Single-party consent for recordings. And since it's my property, my cabin, I'm that single party. I checked with a lawyer before I installed it, made sure everything was completely legal. He looked like he might throw up right there in the parking lot. So, here's how this is going to work, I continued, my voice still calm and measured. You're going to return my investment, all $35,000. You're going to sign a release terminating the partnership. You're going to walk away from this project and from my life, and you're going to do it quietly. Or what? Or I send the footage to every supplier, every vendor, every industry contact you have or ever hope to have. I send it to Precision Tech so they can see exactly what kind of person was using their name. I send it to trade associations and industry forums. I make sure that everyone in the auto business within 200 miles knows exactly what you did. The fraud, the lies, the affair, all of it. You wouldn't. Try me. I pulled out my phone, opened the video app, played 10 seconds. Yeah, just enough. Victoria's laugh. Ben's voice talking about how I'd never figure it out. The cabin interior clearly visible. The date and timestamp in the corner. His face went from gray to white. Actually white. Like he might pass out. You can't. I can. And I will. Unless you do exactly what I just said. He stood there, swaying slightly. Tried to speak, but no words came out. You've got 48 hours, I said. After that, everyone knows everything. I walked back to my truck, started the engine, and pulled away. Ben didn't move, just stared after me like a man who'd suddenly learned the dog he trusted was actually a wolf. I felt lighter than I had in months. Cool night air, stars overhead, classic rock humming through the speakers. Everything felt true again. But it wasn't over. Ben wouldn't go quietly, and Victoria still had no idea how much I knew. They'd try to twist the story, cast me as the villain, claw back control. Let them. I'd spent weeks preparing, gathering proof, building a case no one could break. Now it was time to use it. 2 days later, Thursday morning, I got a call from my bank. I was in the middle of rotating tires on a Ford F-150 when my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail, finished the job, checked the torque on all the lug nuts, then listened to the message. Mr. Wolf, this is Sandra Chen from First National Bank. We need to talk to you about some unusual activity on your business account. Please call us back as soon as possible at... My stomach dropped. I called back immediately. Mr. Wolf, thank you for calling back so quickly, Sandra said. She sounded professional but concerned. We flagged some unusual activity on your business account this morning. Someone attempted to initiate a wire transfer for a substantial amount, $8,000. The request was denied because it didn't match your usual transaction patterns, and it came from an IP address we didn't recognize. We need to verify this wasn't you. It absolutely wasn't me. I didn't authorize any wire transfer. That's what we suspected. The login credentials were correct, which suggests someone had access to your account information. We've frozen the account temporarily as a security measure. We'll need you to come in and file a formal report. I spent my lunch break at the bank, updating passwords and working through security checks. The investigation showed Victoria had tried to access the business account using old bookkeeping credentials from 3 years ago. After several failed attempts with slight variations, the system locked her out. She had been trying to drain the account, money that wasn't hers, planning to leave me with nothing before the divorce. The attempted access came from your home IP address, Sandra told me. We'll need to file a fraud report with local law enforcement. This is identity theft and attempted theft of business assets. Do what you need to do, I said. I filed the report. Changed all my passwords to complex combinations she'd never guess. Added two-factor authentication to everything. Set up alerts for any account activity. Built walls around everything I'd worked for. But it wasn't enough. Because 2 days later, on Saturday morning, a sheriff's deputy showed up at the shop with papers in his hand and a sympathetic expression on his face. Edwin Wolf? That's me? I need to serve you with these. He handed me a manila envelope. Temporary restraining order. You're not to contact Victoria Wolf or come within 500 feet of her residence. I opened the envelope and read through the paperwork. Victoria's petition for a restraining order. Her claims were vague but inflammatory. Emotional abuse, controlling behavior, threatening language. She'd twisted every argument we'd ever had, every disagreement, every moment of tension into evidence of dangerous behavior. Made me sound like a monster. I called Mary Ann immediately. This is standard intimidation tactics, she said when I explained the situation. She's trying to control the narrative, make you look like the aggressor, paint herself as the victim. It's manipulation 101. Can she do that? Just lie? She can file a petition. Whether it stands up in court is another matter, but yes, anyone can make accusations. The question is whether there's evidence to support them. There's no evidence because none of it is true. Then we'll fight it. You've got the cabin footage, the attempted theft of business funds, text messages showing she was lying about where she was and who she was with. The truth is on your side, Edwin. We just need to present it clearly. When's the hearing? Let me see. 2 weeks. November 30th. We'll go in, present your evidence, and get this thrown out. But in the meantime, follow the restraining order to the letter. Don't contact her. Don't go to the house if she's there. Don't give her any ammunition to claim you're violating it. I hung up and sat at my desk, staring at the restraining order paperwork, reading through Victoria's lies, her manipulations, her attempts to paint me as something I wasn't. I wasn't angry anymore. I was something else, something colder and sharper and more focused than anger could ever be. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I'd been playing by the rules, trying to be fair, trying to give them chances to do the right thing, time to change tactics. That night, I drove past Ben's apartment complex, a tired-looking building from the 70s with peeling paint and cars that had seen better days. His Audi was parked in its assigned spot, still drivable, but clearly damaged. He'd had the brakes looked at, but I'd seen the invoice he'd posted online complaining about the cost. $3,000 for a complete brake system replacement. The expanding foam had destroyed everything. I didn't touch the car this time. Didn't need to. But I took photos. Of the building, the parking lot, the license plate, the apartment number. Then I did some research. Property records showed Ben didn't own the apartment. He rented from a small property management company called Riverside Holdings. I looked them up, found the owner's name. A man named Robert Santos who owned 6 rental properties in the area. I did more digging, found out that Santos had a reputation for being strict with tenants, no tolerance for late payments, quick to evict for lease violations, the kind of landlord who runs background checks and credit reports regularly. Perfect. I drafted an email, professional, concerned, citizen to citizen. Dear Mr. Santos, I'm writing to bring to your attention some concerning information about your tenant Ben Carrington at the Riverside Apartments. Mr. Carrington is currently under investigation for business fraud involving the unauthorized use of a corporate brand name and misrepresentation to suppliers. Multiple complaints have been filed with trade associations. While this is not a criminal matter yet, I thought you should be aware as it may affect his ability to meet rental obligations in the coming months. A simple search of his name will confirm these issues. I'm sending this anonymously as a courtesy to help you protect your investment. I sent the email from another burner account, using a new VPN, then waited. The restraining order hearing was set for Tuesday, November 30th. I arrived at the courthouse at 8:30 with Mary Ann, who looked razor-sharp in a navy suit and carried a briefcase full of evidence. Victoria was already there with her attorney, Richard Preston, a polished, expensive lawyer built for damage. We sat across the hall in silence until the judge, a worn but focused woman in her mid-50s, called us in at 9. Preston went first, portraying me as a controlling, obsessive husband who tracked Victoria and threatened her. Fiction delivered convincingly. Then our side began. Mary Ann stood and addressed the judge calmly. Your Honor, Mr. Wolfe has brought extensive documentation that contradicts these claims and reveals the true nature of this situation. She showed the cabin footage. Nothing intimate, just clear proof that Victoria and Ben had been meeting there often, contradicting Victoria's stories. Then came the texts where Victoria claimed she was working alone, followed by bank records revealing her attempt to access the business account without permission. Mary Ann laid it all out calmly and precisely. The judge took notes, asked a few brief questions, and when the presentation ended, turned her attention to Victoria. Mrs. Wolfe, I'm denying the restraining order. The evidence clearly shows that Mr. Wolfe has not engaged in any threatening or harassing behavior. In fact, the evidence suggests that you have been the one engaging in deceptive behavior and potentially criminal activity through the attempted unauthorized access to business accounts. Victoria's face went white. Her lawyer started to object. The judge held up her hand. I'm not finished. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to pay Mr. Wolfe's legal fees for this hearing. Filing frivolous restraining orders wastes this court's time and resources. The amount will be determined and added to any divorce proceedings. Preston tried again to object. The judge shut him down with a look. We're done here. Restraining order denied. We walked out of the courthouse. Mary Ann clapped me on the shoulder. Well done. That was a clean win. It's not over. No, but you're winning every battle. Keep it up. I drove back to the shop with the closest thing to satisfaction I'd felt in weeks. Not joy, but vindication. Proof that truth and evidence still meant something, that lies couldn't carry you forever. I knew Victoria and Ben wouldn't quit. They'd regroup and try again, fighting until they had nothing left. That was fine. I was only just beginning. I waited until late November. The weather had turned genuinely cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes you question why anyone lives this far north. Rain every other day, gray skies that lasted for weeks, the kind of weather that makes you want to stay inside with hot coffee and a blanket. Victoria had texted me once since the restraining order hearing. One short, bitter message at 11:30 at night. I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope destroying me makes you feel like a big man. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. She'd made her choices. Now she was living with them. Ben had gone completely quiet. No calls, no texts, no social media posts. He'd crawled into whatever hole he could find and stayed there, licking his wounds and trying to figure out his next move, but I knew they weren't done. People like Victoria and Ben don't just disappear. They don't accept defeat. They regroup. They plan. They wait for an opening to strike back. I wasn't going to give them one. I drove to the cabin on a Friday evening in late November. The rain was steady, not heavy, but persistent, the kind that soaks everything slowly. The roads were slick. The trees were bare, skeletal branches reaching up into the gray sky. The cabin looked different in late fall, smaller somehow, sadder, like it knew what had happened inside its walls and wanted to forget, like it was ashamed of the secrets it held. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled stale and unused. Dust had settled on every surface. No one had been here in weeks, maybe a month. I walked through slowly, taking it all in. The couch where they'd sat together, drinking wine and laughing at my expense. The table where they'd shared meals and made plans for their future. The bedroom where they'd convinced themselves they were something other than two selfish, broken people using each other. I didn't feel sad, didn't feel angry. Just tired. Deeply, profoundly tired. I walked to the bookshelf and removed the hidden camera. It was small in my hand, no bigger than a matchbox. Such a tiny thing to have captured so much damage. I checked the memory card. Nearly full. Weeks and weeks of footage. Most of it was empty rooms and passing shadows. But scattered throughout were the moments of betrayal. The evidence I'd needed. The proof that couldn't be denied. I pocketed the camera and memory card. Then I started rearranging the cabin. It took me about an hour. I moved the couch to the center of the room. Turned it at an odd angle. Moved the table next to it. Arranged the chairs in a circle like some kind of intervention setup or therapy session. Made everything look staged and artificial, like a set waiting for actors to arrive and perform their scenes. Then I placed items on the table with deliberate care. Things I'd found scattered around the cabin over the past weeks, a wine bottle, empty, 2 glasses with dried residue in the bottom, a scarf Victoria had left behind, purple silk that I'd given her for her birthday 3 years ago, a set of keys on a leather fob, Ben's keys. He'd left them here once, forgotten them in the bedroom, had to come back the next day to retrieve them. I arranged everything carefully, made it look intentional, meaningful, like evidence at a crime scene or artifacts in a museum exhibit, something that would immediately unsettle anyone who walked in. Then I left, locked the door behind me, got in my truck, sat there for a moment, engine idling, looking at the cabin through the rain-streaked windshield. This place had represented something good once, a weekend retreat, a place to escape the stress of work and daily life, a place where Victoria and I had spent happy times in the early years of our marriage, before things got complicated and distant. Now it was just a monument to betrayal. I drove home, the windshield wipers beating steadily, slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, Saturday, I sent 2 carefully crafted text messages. The first went to Victoria from a new disposable phone I'd bought at a convenience store with cash. We need to finalize the divorce. No more delays. No more legal games. Let's meet at the cabin Sunday evening at 7. Neutral ground. We'll sign the papers and be done with this. Bring your lawyer if you want. I just want it over. The second went to Ben from the same phone, sent 5 minutes later. Victoria wants to talk. Says she has a plan to fix everything, says you need to be there. Cabin, Sunday evening, 7 p.m. She said it's important, said she'd explain everything. Then I waited, phone in hand, watching for responses. Both came within an hour. Victoria replied first. Fine, 7 p.m. No tricks, just paperwork. Ben's response took a bit longer. Is this really from her? How do I know this isn't some kind of setup? I typed back. She's using my phone to contact you because she doesn't want her lawyer to know she's talking to you. Just be there. She says she has a solution. His response? Okay, I'll be there. Perfect. I spent Saturday preparing. With Marianne's help, I finalized the divorce papers, ensuring Victoria would have no claim to the shop, the house, or any shared assets beyond what she had brought into the marriage, just her things, her car, and her own money. I also wrote a partnership release for Ben, ending our business ties and falsely stating he'd been fully repaid. Sunday was cold, gray, and wet. I woke early, made coffee, ate, cleaned up, then loaded my truck, divorce papers, partnership papers, laptop with backups, and a recorder. I drove to the cabin, arriving at 5:30, early enough to prepare. Rain turned the road to mud as I unlocked the cabin. Inside, everything remained as I'd left it. Strange, staged, unsettling. I sat and listened to the storm. At 6:50, I heard a car. Headlights sliced through the dark. Victoria. She stepped out into the rain, hesitating before approaching. Soaked, she finally knocked. I opened the door. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Fear, maybe. Or defiance. Or just exhaustion. "Come in," I said. She hesitated on the threshold, looking past me at the strange arrangement inside. "What is all this?" "Come in, Victoria." She stepped inside, water dripping from her coat. Looked around at the staged furniture, the items on the table, the whole unsettling scene I'd created. "Edwin, what?" "Sit down. He'll be here soon." Her face went pale. "What? Who?" "You know who." She started to back toward the door. I didn't move to stop her, just watched. "You said we were signing papers. You said—" "I said a lot of things. So did you. So did Ben. Now we're all going to have one final conversation." At exactly 7:03, another set of headlights appeared. Another car pulling up outside. Ben. He got out and walked toward the cabin door, shoulders hunched against the rain. Saw Victoria's car and hesitated, then kept coming. He opened the door without knocking, walked in, saw Victoria, saw me, saw the whole setup. His face went through a rapid series of expressions. Confusion, fear, realization, then resignation. "What the hell is this?" he said, but his voice had no strength behind it. "Sit down," I said again. "Both of you. We need to talk." The rain hammered against the cabin roof like it was trying to break through. Inside, the three of us stood in a silence so thick and heavy, it felt like a physical presence in the room. Victoria sat rigidly on the couch, arms crossed defensively across her chest. Ben leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, looking like a man who'd run out of places to hide, out of excuses, out of energy to keep fighting. I stood in front of them, backlit by the single lamp I'd turned on in the corner. I walked to the table slowly, deliberately, and picked up the folder I'd brought with me, set it down on the coffee table in front of them with a soft thud. "Divorce papers," I said, looking directly at Victoria. My voice was calm, measured, completely devoid of emotion. "You sign them tonight. Right here. Right now. You get nothing from the shop, nothing from the house, nothing from any shared assets we've accumulated during the marriage. You walk away with exactly what you brought into this relationship 12 years ago. Your personal belongings, your car, your own checking account. That's it. That's all." She didn't move, just stared at the folder like it might explode if she touched it. "And if I refuse?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Then I file a fraud claim with the district attorney tomorrow morning. You attempted to access my business account illegally. Tried to initiate an unauthorized wire transfer. That's identity theft and attempted theft of business assets. Both felonies. You'll have a criminal record. Good luck keeping your magazine job with that hanging over you. Good luck finding any work in media or publishing with a fraud conviction on your record." Her jaw tightened. I could see her mind working, looking for an angle, a way out, some leverage she could use. There wasn't any. I turned to Ben before she could respond. "You've got two choices. One, you sign a release acknowledging you've returned my investment in full, all $35,000, even though you haven't returned a single penny. But you sign it anyway, you acknowledge the partnership is terminated, and I don't pursue legal action for the money you stole and the fraud you committed." "I didn't steal." "Yes," I interrupted, my voice sharp as a knife. "You did. You used my money to fund a project you had no intention of sharing fairly. You lied to suppliers about having a franchise agreement. You used Precision Tech's brand name without authorization to negotiate better prices. You committed fraud, multiple counts. But I'm willing to let it all go, let you walk away, if you sign. And if I don't, then I sue you. Civil court. I'll win because I have documentation of everything. Every lie, every misrepresentation, every penny you spent. You'll owe me $35,000 plus interest plus legal fees, probably close to $50,000 by the time it's all done. And I'll make sure every auto shop, every supplier, every vendor, every industry contact within 200 miles knows exactly what you did. You'll never work in this business again. You'll be blacklisted, unemployable, finished. He looked at Victoria, silently pleading for support or guidance or rescue. She looked away. "Why are you doing this?" Ben said, and his voice cracked. Actually cracked like he might cry. "We were friends. Best friends. 20 years, Edwin. 20 years of friendship. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "We were friends," I said quietly. Past tense. "And then you decided my wife and my money and my future were all yours for the taking." "So no, Ben. We're not friends. We never really were. You were just waiting for the right opportunity to take what wasn't yours." I pulled a pen from my pocket, set it on the table next to the folders with a sharp click. "Sign." Victoria grabbed the pen first, her hand shaking as she searched the pages for any loophole and found none. Mary Ann had closed every exit. She signed all 3 sheets with a tight, furious scrawl. Ben took his time, reading every clause before adding his own broken signature, a mark of resignation. I gathered the signed papers with care, placing them back into the folder like fragile artifacts. "Good," I said. "Now get out." Victoria stood immediately, grabbing her coat, desperate to escape. Started toward the door. Ben followed more slowly, stopped at the threshold, turned back to me with something desperate in his eyes. "You think you won," he said, voice shaking with emotion. "You think this makes you the good guy, but you didn't win anything. You just made yourself into the same kind of person you claim to hate. Manipulative, calculating, cruel. You're no better than us." I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked at him. Saw the man I'd called my best friend for 2 decades. The man who'd stood beside me at my wedding, who'd helped me move furniture when Victoria and I bought our house, who'd been there for birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesday evenings. And I felt nothing. "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'm not a thief." He flinched like I'd hit him. Then he walked out into the rain. Victoria was already in her car, engine running. Ben got into his Audi. Both cars backed out of the driveway, headlights cutting through the darkness, and disappeared down the muddy road. I stood in the doorway of the cabin, watching them go, listening to the sound of their engines fade into the distance until there was nothing left but rain and silence. I stood there for a long time, just breathing, just existing in the moment. Then I went back inside, sat down on the couch where they'd spent so many afternoons together. The same couch where they'd laughed about me and planned their future and convinced themselves they were justified in their betrayal. I didn't feel victorious, didn't feel relieved, just felt empty. But it was a good kind of empty. Clean. Like a wound that had finally been drained of infection. It would hurt for a while, would leave a scar, but it would heal. I locked up the cabin one final time, got in my truck, started the long drive home through the rain. The windshield wipers beat steadily. The radio played softly. Classic rock, songs I'd heard 1,000 times before. And somewhere during that drive, I realized something important. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about refusing to be a victim, about taking back control, about proving to myself that I had value and strength and the ability to stand up when someone tried to knock me down. They'd tried to take everything from me, my money, my wife, my dignity, my future. But I was still here, still standing, still moving forward, and they were gone.